Last year, I made a video getting really honest about my fears with regards to my business, and I said this. I realised that I was trying to do the right things, but I'm not doing it nearly hard enough or fast enough. And if I don't fix that, then my business will probably tank. And that inspired me to make this video series where I share the revenue that I made over the past month and just anything that I did to try and get the shop back on track. And this video, my friends, is the last video in that series. And not only am I going to share with you the revenue that I made last month in December, I'm also going to share with you where I go from here. Am I going to stick with Etsy? Before we get into that, let's quickly run through the stats and the revenue for the previous month for those that came for that. And then we'll talk more about that other juicy stuff at the end of the video. Okay. I have my laptop in front of me because I can never remember the numbers. Okay, first, visits. I had 511, which is down from November's 1,231. I got 3 sales, down from November's 13, and revenue I made £55, which is down from November's £236. So what gives? Why are all of those figures so down compared to November, especially when it was December, which is one of the busiest months of the year? Well, put quite simply, I went on holiday. As you can see, the shop was literally only open for the first 5 days of December, and then I put it on vacation mode until the start of the new year, and it was lovely. Now, I should say that I wouldn't usually have put the shop on vacation mode so early on in the month. In fact, usually I don't put it on vacation mode at all. I mean, usually what I do is there's a cutoff point, and anything after that point, I just make it very, very obvious to anyone buying that they won't get the item until after Christmas. I might increase my processing times, that sort of thing. At the very, very least, I would have usually have kept up the digital items and then just taken the physical items down. But one way or another, the shop stays open and open for business throughout. So what was different? Well, the postal strikes. In a nutshell, here in the UK, most of us know now that we had postal strikes towards the end of last year, and they really did sort of gear up and in frequency, and as a result, at the busiest time of year for the postal service, everything just backed up. Essentially, the decision to close early may have cost me a few sales, but what it saved me in terms of stress was unbeatable. So I have no regrets. Okay, so I've shared with you my revenue, the stats, explained why there was the flat line for the most of December. So going forward, where does this leave me with my Etsy shop? So the whole point of this experiment was to see if I could make Etsy start paying for itself again in terms of revenue, but also in terms of my time and my energy. And it was a mixed bag. Yes, I was able to increase my revenue again consistently, and I was able to hit my profit goals for most of those months, except for the months like December when I went on holiday for most of it. We'll move on. But was it worth it in terms of my time and my energy? Ooh, I'm not so sure. I did find that the time that it took to get those consistent sales and to keep them coming in, it did leave me feeling pretty wrung out and exhausted, if I'm being brutally honest. And I noticed that the majority of my sales and my traffic came from things that I was doing off-site, which I knew. Etsy has not been a place that can just give you nothing but organic traffic and sales all the time without you doing anything. It hasn't been that platform for a long time. So I knew that in order to keep the ball rolling, I had to get it rolling to begin with. But I was surprised at how quickly that ball stopped rolling after you'd got it going, and how quickly the organic traffic and sales tailed off, if that makes sense. I mean, it used to be that you would get the ball rolling and it would keep rolling, it would keep up its own momentum for a pretty decent amount of time, which gave you breathing space. But I found that to stick with this metaphor, the time between pushes was less and less, which meant that it started to feel more like I was constantly pushing, and it felt a lot like feeding algorithms in a sense. And it almost felt, to switch to another metaphor, that if I took my foot off the gas, the Etsy car would stall. That just meant that it was a constant slog, and Etsy is not my only source of income. It's not my whole business. Obviously, this YouTube channel is a part of that as well. So I don't have the luxury or the time or even the energy to be constantly doing this. There has to be a bit more momentum in order for it to be worth my time and effort. Now, to add a bit of balance, that's not to say that I didn't get organic traffic and I didn't get organic sales, because I did. Etsy does give you both. It was less than I had anticipated. So to cut a long story short, it became very apparent very quickly that I might be better off focusing that same time and energy on a website, my own standalone shop. Now, obviously, it takes time for a website to build legs and to be able to do all of the things. So it's not going to be a hitting the ground running scenario. This is going to be something that I'm going to have to chip away at and grow over the next year. That's what I'm going to be focusing on this year. And I hope that a year from now, not only will I be glad that I started, but that I will have a standalone shop that will be able to give me what I need in terms of revenue, profit, time and energy that I'm not currently getting from my Etsy shop. That's all very well and good, Kim, but are you leaving Etsy or not? You might be saying. Well, no. No, I'm not. Because as I said in my recent pros and cons video, Etsy is a good tool to have alongside other things. It will be really interesting, because if I'm taking the foot off the gas with my Etsy shop, it would be good to see exactly how far it can carry itself without that extra input from me. I'm willing to bet that it's going to fall on its bum, but we shall see. But I am really excited and scared at the prospect of starting my own standalone shop and building that up. And I'm going to be sharing that more on this channel over the coming year. There'll still be Etsy content, don't worry. If you're here for that and you like it, well, good news, there's going to be more of that. I'm going to be doing a trends video in the next week or so. So yes, there will be Etsy content here, but it's not going to be nearly as Etsy heavy, if that makes sense. And the website content, that sort of behind the scenes stuff, is going to be from the position of a total noob, because I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, hence the scared part to all of this. I know where I stand with Etsy. I've been on Etsy since 2007. My sea legs with the Etsy ship are pretty strong. Websites though, I haven't got a clue. This could be interesting and scary and possibly very messy. Are you here for that? I do hope so, because that's all I've got for you. If you are interested, I've opted to go for a Shopify store, because you can integrate that with YouTube, which is, what you're watching me on. So it kind of felt like a no-brainer, really. Especially as if you've watched these previous videos in this series, you'll know that Etsy has been my biggest source of traffic, external traffic on Etsy, for the past year, since I started sharing the link in the description and what have you. Now, don't get me wrong, Etsy's not all bad, and it's got some really strong things going for it, which I mentioned in my pros and cons video. But if you sell on Etsy, you might get to the point where you too start to wonder if you might be better off focusing on something else, or, as I'm doing, focusing on something else alongside Etsy. And if that is you, then do come and tell me, because I've said it once and I'll say it again, running your own business can be a lonely old game. So sometimes it's nice to talk with people who are walking the same path as you. And I'm just nosy, so come and tell me. Until the next video, folks.